welcome to my first makeup tutorial. If you want to see how I created this look, keep on watching. Let's start off with my favourite primer. It is the Ordinary High Spreadability Fluid Primer. So we rub that in. First, beauty blender, wet beauty blender. My favourite one is the Real Techniques. My favourite foundation, all-time favourite foundation, is the Urban Decay All Nighter in shade 2. Don't forget to take into consideration that the Urban Decay All Nighter foundation oxidizes. So if you go into a shop, they always are willing to give you samples. So get a sample just to make sure. Also, the sample will last you for about 3-4 makeup looks. So I use about 3 pumps. 3 pumps on my face and about 2 on my neck. It looks very bright, but it will oxidize. Start working it into my skin, and then I can add more if I need to. As you can see, the foundation is super high coverage. It's €36, but it lasts for a very long time. So you can just see the difference. And I go all the way up to my eyes. So I have about 2 pumps on my face. I'm just going to add a bit more here and here because, as you can see, I had the rash. And the rest that's left on my hand I'm going to use on my neck. My makeup usually takes about 2 to 3 hours when I go out, but that's very dependent on what I do. Usually when I go out I also pre-drink and there's people around. I'm sticking to my routine, so having a few drinks while doing makeup. And do my ears. Don't forget your ears, and don't forget inside your ears. Try to do it, and behind your ears. Try to cover your ears as much as possible, just because that's the areas where people forget to do, and you can really tell that they have the wrong foundation shade. If your foundation is a bit too bright, as I said, or a bit too dark, you can always manipulate it with contour or concealer. Whereas skin tone you can't really play around with. So I really do take my time when it comes to foundation, because I feel like if you don't have a good base, you can't continue to the rest of the makeup. Next we're moving on to concealer. The Instant Age Eraser from Maybelline. I'm using the shade Warm Light. Put some on your forehead, under eyes, and chin. I start off with my chin because it's the least important in my opinion. I let it sit under my eyes to give more high coverage, because with concealers and foundations, if you let it sit for longer, they give more coverage. Then I move on to my forehead using the same beauty blender. I move on to my eyes. I'm going to move on to the other eye. All-time favourite concealer is the All Nighter by Urban Decay. Also, when you're doing makeup, be very gentle with your beauty blender, just go like this. And we move on to powder. The powder I use is the Ben & I Super White. It is very white, so be careful. But it is very finely milled, so it doesn't crease. I find when powders are not, if they're not thin enough, they do crease under your eyes, so that's what I tend to use under my eyes. So I put a bit on a palette and my powder. And tap it in. Start off using powders such as this, which are very white. Start off with areas that you want highlighted, so right in the middle, and then move outwards. So I'll complete the whole face and I'll come back. So my mirror decided to fall, so I had to stop the video. But my base is done, so after my base is done I continue to eyebrows. And my favourite eyebrow pomade is the Anastasia Beverly Hills in the shade Ebony. I work the product into the brush and we start with under the eyebrow. Here we go. I then brush out my eyebrows. I move on to the arch. I'm going to just sit closer just for this. Hope you can see the eyebrows perfectly. What I'm doing. I'm going to draw a line on top of my eyebrow. Like that, so it's a straight line. And then I do the end of my eyebrow. I always do like a little line here, and then connect them all together. There we go. And just fill in the hairs that we missed. So there we go. Also, my number one advice for people who struggle to do their eyebrows using a pomade is to use an eyeliner brush. There's your eyebrow. And now we'll move on to our second product, which is the Foolproof Brow Powder. It's two shades, the brown and the black, and it's in shade 5. And it has a little tool here which we don't really use. So we're going to get rid of the excess product on the brush. We're going to dip into the lighter shade for the front of the eyebrows. Also, if you don't have a pomade, I have a trick for you. If you dip your brush into something wet and dip it into the powder, it's going to give you a beautiful straight line and it's going to look like a pomade. Tap it off. And do the front of the eyebrows. Fill it in here. Just like that. go. And then we brush up the fronts of the eyebrows with the brush. And there we go. That's our finished eyebrows. I don't set them with anything in particular. So now we're moving on to mascara. I use two mascaras. So I use the Roller Lashes from Benefit and then the Bad Gal from Benefit. I first use the Roller Lashes. I do the top. We move on to our second mascara, which is the Bad Gal by Benefit as well. And then we just use a tiny bit. There we go. So after we have done our eyebrows and our eyelashes, we move on to contour, and I'm using Inglot, and I'm using the 505 Inglot contour powder. It is a very cool tone, so be very careful because it can look very dirty on your face. It can look like you rubbed in dirt on your face. So it's very good for sculpting, so I sculpt with that, and then I use the other one, Hoola, to bronze it up and make it warm and more natural. And it does not have a number, so I can't tell you the number. Also, the brush I have used for my powder is the B02 from Tkmaxx. So I tap in a little bit. Or I do my nose. Don't forget we're going to blend all those lines later, and also we have another powder contour to use. So then we're going to use a Real Techniques brush, the Bold Metals, the 301. And we're going to blend that line. Do circular motions. After circular motions, do up and down motions. Then I move on to my Benefit palette, which has Hoola in it. Here we go. And I dab in a little bit to warm up the nose, because the other one's very cold. There we go. From the straight up angle, it does the job. The Hoola palette is about €33, and you have got a highlighter, blush, and the Hoola itself is about €30, so you're better off just getting the whole palette. The Inglot powder is about €12. Also, I forget to mention that the Eyebrow Pomade is about €24. Let's move on to our cheekbones. The most important part, you know what I mean? If you ain't got no cheekbone, you won't get nothing. Okay, so let's look at my cheeks. And I dab the product along my cheekbones. We have a line, but that's good. And we blend it up the way. So I blend this, and when I do blend this, I'll be back. So once I'm finished with the 505 on my cheekbones, I move on to my jawline. So now we're moving on to the hula, and we use a big brush like this from Penny's, which is the powder and blusher. It doesn't have a number. Yes, and this brush is e.l.f. contouring brush. It doesn't have a number either. We top it off and we work it in. And we go to our temples. I do the temples is just with the hula, just because they're not as important. Just do around the hairline. So now moving on, our next step is apple juice. Siri, I'll fail him. Tried to bring another can. So I clean the brush off something like a towel or something like that. I usually have a makeup towel in my makeup drawer. We just go again and make sure it's all blended. And the same to the other side. So after our contour is complete, we will move on to setting our face with a setting spray. I set my face before highlight, so after we've done contour, we're moving on to setting our face. I set my face always before I highlight because it gives a stronger effect. So I use the PS Primer Hydrate setting spray. It's only €5, lasts a very long time, takes off the cakiness, so it's very good. I use a lot, the more the better. Move on to highlighter. I use the strobe highlighter from Revolution in the shade Supernova. I first do my nose. I use the brush from the Sleek palette for my nose, which is like this. It comes with the palette. Move on to the inner corners of our eyes with a Penny's brush again. Just any tiny brush will do with a very precise tip. And then we'll move on to our eyebrow arch. With a brush from a nail set, it was a nail set, so it's basically a little small fan brush that I found. And we'll just highlight under here. There we go, super highlighted. Then we move on to our chin. We go back to the small fan brush again for our cupid bow. And then we move on to our last step. We use a generous amount and then we top it off just to make sure it's evenly spread on the brush. And that is the reason I set before I highlight, because it gives that mirror effect. And I put the residue on my eyebrow, on the arch, above my eyebrow arch. And that's it, guys. So after I have cleaned my lips, that's the finished look. That's it, that's the complete makeup look. That's the makeup I wear all night out. Thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully see you in my next video.